First of all, the key question is over a couple of fitness concerns. John Asiata and Cade Cust, what's the latest on them?
Yeah, Johnny gets a scan tomorrow, so not clear on the length of time. Definitely won't play this week. Cade hasn't trained with us as yet. He's been in rehab. We'll give him till Thursday. We don't fly out till sort of Thursday afternoon, so or Thursday lunchtime. So we'll have an idea once we finish training Thursday.
Clearly, you can't give me a reaction to John Asiata's injury yet because he hasn't had the scan. But how concerned are you that he could be out for a period of time?
Oh, well, there's no point worrying about it, is there? You know, until we actually know what we're dealing with. It's hard to say with hamstrings. You know, he doesn't. He's had experience with that sort of injury on his other leg, and it doesn't feel as bad. But until you get that scan result, we don't really know.
Even if it is just one game, it's certainly a big loss for you, ever present since the beginning of the season. How big a loss is it going into this game at the weekend?
Yeah, especially seeing that he hasn't missed much footy between sort of the start of the year and now. So he's become sort of, you know, our game's evolved more and more with him and Aiden out there, and they're both very dominant players. But we had a pre-season where we planned for players not there, trained with different scenarios. So whilst it was a while back, we're confident that we don't have to change too much going into the game.
What about Cade Cust? If you do have to replace him, what options have you got?
Jordan Rapana, Jack Charles, trained with them both there this week. It's just wait and see, I suppose. We've done time with both of them in the six jumper. As I say, we're not in any rush to make the decision. We don't, as I said, we don't fly out till Thursday, so we'll as coaches, we'll have time to sit down tomorrow and have a good think about it, watch the training, then come up with a call on Thursday.
John Rapana, you just mentioned him there, obviously missed the victory against Lee because of the HIA protocols. How good is it having him back, and where is he at with obviously having to sit out last week?
Yeah, well, he's 100% clear. Very strict on those protocols now, so he's passed all the tests. Just to be able to bring, he's an international. He's played over 250 games now. Still probably finding his feet in regards, because that's probably my fault, and that I've had to shift him around the park and play in different positions. But to have a guy that experience and that class to come into your team, it's always a bonus.
Yeah, a big boost, I imagine. Any other issues around the team? Any other selection issues for you this weekend?
Oh, not at the moment. I always like to finalise the team as late as we possibly can. There's a lot of illness going around at the moment, so you never know what can throw at you until you run onto the field. So I always try and finalise it as late as we possibly can. And this week it'll be Thursday.
Yeah, you said about a lot of illness there. What we're talking about, colds and sniffles and that kind of thing.
Yeah, just flu type symptoms. Fair bit of that. Not just within the team, with people in general, I find. So it's that time of year, I suppose.
Yeah. What about that? Because it is obviously a bit of an occupational hazard. People have to brush into other people, and you can't wrap people in cotton wool before you fly off to France. But what do you do? Do you ask the players perhaps to sort of avoid contact if a player's got an illness and that kind of thing?
Well, you do. It's we take as much care as we possibly can, but the fact is that a couple of hours a day they're also wrestling each other, and we're in close contact. We're in this room, a fair bit of time. They're in the change rooms. There's just absolutely no way of avoiding it. You just got to look after your diet, plenty of hydration, and if you feel anything coming on, just make sure you see the doctor.
Let's talk about now looking back on Thursday. General consensus was it was an incredibly impressive victory. Would you say that was your best win of the season?
Hard to say. They're a good opposition, so whenever you beat a good opposition, I think you've got to be doing things well. I just like the back of it. I like it on the back of the Leeds performance. I thought that was a really a bit of a line in the sand sort of game for us. Like I've said before, I really rate Leeds. I think they're 1-17. They're as good as anyone in the competition, and their form of late is sort of proving that. So to go there and whilst we didn't win, you can't always win. You can play well and not win. It's not as long as you don't dwell on it, it's not a massive issue. And if you can back it up the following week, which is what we did against Lee, I thought the way we started, the way we got through, even in the second half, whilst we, didn't come up with any points, I thought with some changes with injury and change of momentum in the game, I thought we handled that pretty well. And probably, we never looked like losing that one.
One thing you did highlight, as you said, because you had to make in-game changes, was the way the players adapted. How big is that for you, the fact that in that level of adversity you lose a couple of influential players, that the players involved step up and are able to transfer position?
Yeah, well, you have to be able to do it because it happens all the time. You want to go through into the game and everything go to plan, but the fact is you don't get that happen very often. There's sin bins, there's send-offs, there's injuries, and sometimes you make a call on the bench to go with maybe three or four middles on the bench and you lose a winger. So it's a bit of a lottery. But you just got to be adaptable when it happens. And we're fortunate we've got some players in the side who can play well, no matter where they get shifted to. So that's a bonus for us.
You've got a lot of experience in that squad, but you've also got a lot of youth. How impressed are you since you came to the club with perhaps the adaptability of the squad and the resilience of the squad?
Yeah, the experienced guys are the ones that we've been able to look to when we've had to make changes, key changes in the game. Zach Hardiker was a good example. Went from the back row to the number 6 jumper on the weekend, and I thought, in a really difficult role without having any practice in it, he just sort of slotted into it really well. Fortunate to have Zach in the team because he pretty much can play anywhere from 1 to the front row if he really had to.
That win against Lee, how important was that in terms of getting back the momentum again and aiming for a top 6 finish, just from a psychological perspective?
Yeah, well, I'm not putting any pressure on the players as far as a top 6 finish. It's not. You win games, and that will look after itself. So I'm not. There's no pressure from me about where we sit on the table or a top 6 finish. Obviously, we all want to be there. We're competitive people, but it's just might be cliched, but it's just about improving. Every week's always about improving, whether we win or whether we lose. And probably a good example for me of that was the Leeds game. I thought we would have won 9 times out of 10 with what we produced there. It didn't happen. So we can't get tied up on where that left us on the ladder or whether we're going to make the top 6. It was about improving on that performance, and we did, and going into this week will be exactly the same attitude.
So in that sense, if I were to ask you for a progress report 12 games in, you'd probably push back on that anyway then, because I wanted to ask you if you are where you wanted to be, or perhaps the ownership set you challenges of where you wanted to be at this stage of the season. Have you achieved those targets?
In certain areas, I'm really happy with where we're going. Always room and scope for improvement. We've had a lot of injuries along the way, so seeing different guys get opportunities has been good for us as well. We've brought some new players in since the season started, and they've really helped us. So I'm not basing the year at all on getting wins. Like I said, it's really important that we improve from week to week. Our attitude, it's been a little bit bumpy, I suppose, in games, but consistently been okay. And that's what I've sort of asked from them all the way through is consistent with our efforts and consistent with certain things we want to achieve in a game.
Let's look ahead to this weekend's game. A coach lost their job last week with great associations to this club as well. Were you surprised that Steve McNamara left after 7 seasons?
Yeah, you don't know what goes on, in another club. I know Steve reasonably well. He's anyone his team he's been in my experience have been involved is always really well prepared, disciplined, and hard to beat. It's a funny old world. coaching and rugby league, all sports actually. So you can't always base everything on results. There's always something going on in the background, and I'm not real sure what's happened there, but I'm pretty sure he'll land on his feet somewhere.
Yeah, we see it in football, don't we, that often club ownership groups change a manager and a head coach because they just want a refresh. Does that happen in rugby league as well? A shift of momentum, that bounce back, if you like? Yeah,
it happens pretty regular. Unless you're, on the coalface with the team and with the administration that make the calls, it's hard to judge, hard to say what's exactly happened. But they've made a decision to go the way they have, and it's always a pretty dangerous proposition when you come up against a side that's just lost their coach.
Yeah, I'll ask you about that factor. They have obviously got an interim head coach, we'll come on to it in a sec, but that factor of coming up against a team that has changed coach but also is wounded after a heavy defeat against Wigan in the last round of Super League. What are the challenges and the threats that poses you and your team this weekend?
Probably not buying into it, to be honest with you. It's we go out onto the field, and if we can maintain some areas that we were good in the last couple of weeks for us and get better at it, pretty much takes all that out of the equation. So yes, it's been mentioned, but it won't be again from here on to kick off. It'll all be about us and what we need to do well to win.
And what about the threats? Where do the threats in that Catalan side come from?
Again, a bit hard to say because they had a lot of players, especially outside backs, on the sideline last week. So Tavita Pangai didn't play. When he's going well, he's a big bonus for them. Luke Keary, he's at his best, he's a dangerous player. But Sam Tomkins didn't play. So until we see their side, we can't really say who the main dangers will be. The key areas normally your 1, 6, 7 and 9.
What about Joel Tomkins? Is the pressure on him, or actually because he's obviously an experienced pro player with years and years behind him, is this a free hit for him?
Yeah, normally when you come in, it's an interim coach, so you've got huge scope and opportunity if you do want the job down the track to make come in and make a stand. It's as I say, it's difficult to know what's going on in Catalans because we're not there. So there's been no sort of talk about who's coaching, or as I said, we've mentioned there's a change of coach, but as far as I'm concerned, that's sort of where it ends.
And this kind of is an interesting moment in the sand for you as well. Your first game in Super League, your first big game, of course, this season was against Catalans. How have you changed since that opening round of Super League?
I don't think I've changed at all. I think that the players, the way I like to coach, I think that I like them to know what to expect, whether we win, lose or draw for the week ahead, and that goes for the remaining weeks in the competition. I think that sets a standard that we all know where we sit. I'd like to think I know what to expect from them when they get selected, and I'm pretty sure that they know what to expect from me on the back of any sort of performance.
But can you see progression in that team from the opening round of Super League and say from Catalan trip to Catalan trip, I can see a real growth in this team?
Look, that was a really good performance, the first game we played over there. I don't think we could have played much better, to be honest with you. It was good to know that we're capable of that, but I've also seen some performances that we weren't so good. So we've become a lot more consistent. There's been a few dips here and there. We've had a lot of change in personnel as well from that game. There's probably half a dozen guys not playing. But yeah, I've been sort of, especially over the last 2 weeks, just really happy with the consistency of the group.
Last question from me, Ryan Westerman. What's the update on him? Where's he at in terms of regaining fitness?
Yeah, he's back playing. He's going to do a little bit of a loan deal with Hunslet for the moving forward. I just think it's with the way the reserve competition works, it's really tough on the players. Only playing every second week, so if we can get loan deals for those boys, that it's excuse me, advantageous for us and advantageous for the players, we'll keep searching for those opportunities.
Is that a 2-week loan deal, or is that more of a long-term thing for the remainder of the season?
Well, it's 2 weeks minimum, so we've just got to, we can call him back at any time.
Hi John, sticking with young Westy there, played reserves at the weekend. Obviously it was a tough 3-month injury. I mean, how was he on his return?
Yeah, he played pretty well. It was a tough game. It wasn't played on Lee's main pitch. wasn't the best conditions. Not a lot of atmosphere there, but he looked dangerous with the ball. Still got plenty of work to do on his defence, but he showed some good signs.
And elsewhere, obviously Brad Fash played on Joe Reg for Doncaster. Yusuf played for reserves as well. I mean, how do they go? Because it's good that they're playing and obviously keeping an option for you in terms of selection. Yeah,
they did everything asked of them. Played good minutes. Were consistent. The Donny coaches were very happy with them. The bottom line is we need them playing. I'd love them to be all playing here in a second grade team in this environment, but that's not the case. So we need to go out and source opportunities for him to play.
Back on the injury front, how's Jed doing? Is he progressing well this week to play, or what's his
he won't play this week. It's just we decided it's just too much of a jump with the travel, and he's right on the borderline as far as time's concerned. It gives him another 2 weeks to get ready for the Castleford game.
I suppose that's a good thing, because you can get that hamstring absolutely right with this week off, and then he hopefully comes back in 100% for Cass. Yeah,
that was the mentality behind it. It was, we got a week off after this week, so that in effect it gives him another 2 weeks to get ready for the Cass game.
I appreciate we ask you the same questions every week, but Lane, Holmes, Watts, how are they doing? Is there any progression?
No, just wait and see, mate. So no return date in sight for any of those boys yet.
And how's Liggy? Because obviously I know he's ruled out for the season, but how is he mentally? Is he getting on with his rehab still well?
No, he's good. He's been through it before. It's always, when you first get the injury, it's a tough time to deal with, but he's right at his rehab mode now. He's doing everything he possibly can to get his leg right.
Good stuff. Nice positive story. You mentioned Jack Charles earlier. Obviously that was a career first, especially in terms of his professional career. Obviously 2 injuries in pre-season. He's come back. He's played for Doncaster. He's played for reserves. I mean, how have you assessed him and his attitude just to come right through that circle and get himself back? Yeah,
his attitude's been great. He's worked really hard on his body in the time that he's had out. He's had a couple of games back now where he's, I've been impressed with him. I think it's just part of his, his learning curve. He's training really well. He's able to train against a real quality side every, couple of days a week here. That's all going to add to his skill set. When he gets a chance, it's hard to say. We're sort of getting a few guys back. And the fact, Custy's playing so well and Aiden's playing so well and they haven't been injured, it's just made it hard for him. But, it's all about, like the team, just getting better each week.
If the worst does happen with Custy, is it a genuine chance for Jack to be knocked?
We'll make that call on Thursday, mate.
In terms of Catalans, I'm presuming it's just the same message, because obviously you got the most consistent block of the season in the last 2 games in terms of what you want from your side. So I'm guessing it's just been the same again at training, go again, stick to these standards.
Yeah, it's a totally different environment over there. We're walking into a pretty hot place as far as the temperature's concerned. I think they're talking about 30 degrees, so that's a challenge. We've spoken about it, but talking about it and dealing with it are 2 different things. It's generally really difficult in those conditions to handle the ball, so that'll be a key for us. I think that's where we've improved the last couple of weeks, one of the areas, and that'll be a challenge for us over there.
What did you make of Catalans' response last week? Because usually you get a honeymoon phase, don't you, when a coach changes? Obviously they did get turned over quite heavily by Wigan, so is it fair to prepare for the best of them this week and what they can throw out Hull?
Yeah, I think so. I think they rested a fair, if players weren't quite right, I thought that, Wigan's a tough gig anytime you play them. They're at full strength, Wigan, so they're going to be tough at any stage. So whether they just sort of pulled a few players who may have been not 100% just to get them ready for this week, time will tell. But we certainly will expect a different opposition when we play them this week.
And how important is it for you to have that time together as well? Because it's something you spoke of back in February, going over, spending a night together and just getting that team, cohesion and relationships building and things like that.
Yeah, just being able to build on what we've, as a group, since that first game, they're looking forward to it. We really enjoyed our time over there in the first round, and the main reason we enjoyed it was we got a win out of it. So that's the key for us.
Cheers, John.
Tell me.
Hi, John. There's a lot been said about player welfare over the last few seasons, and quite rightly so. We've seen that emotional aspect from yourself, whether it's been frustrating in the stands or whether it's been your emotions getting the better of you when we've been good as well. And we've just heard about Steve McNamara, some of the frustrations, even anxiety levels being raised at your level. So we're not talking players, we're talking management and coaching staff. So the players have someone to turn to. Who does John Cartwright turn to when he needs that sympathetic ear, an arm around his shoulder, or some wise words of advice?
Got good friends, good staff. I think the worst thing you can do as a coach is just try and do things on your own. I feel safe and comfortable when in the environment of the staff here. Trust them. They've been great. When those alone times which do come, you can't hide from it. You've got to deal with it. But it's for me, it's trusted friends and the staff that we have here. As I say, when you feel alone, that's when you feel most vulnerable. And when I'm here, you never feel alone.
And thinking about when you are switched off from rugby league, if that ever occurs, what do you like to do in your spare time?
I've had a bit of family over recently, which has been something I've been looking forward to, and I've got more coming over while the weather's good over here. Got more coming. I've got a group of friends coming over, which is great. Been playing a bit of golf lately, which I enjoy. It's funny. It's when you're not involved with footy over here and you're a long way from home. It's a totally different, I suppose, culture that you've got to get used to, and I'm just enjoying the downtime, to be honest with you.
Thanks, John.
Hi, John. I've asked Zach. I'm going to ask you, how much of an advantage does this give you, the fact that you've already been over there and won this season?
Well, it's funny. You probably won't like the answer, but we'll know after the game. It's every week is so different. You just look at, especially for us, our results. We've won some games probably no one gives us a chance to win, and we've lost a game where everyone probably thought we'd win. So it's not just not being comfortable. It's a tough game, and if you don't go there with a tough attitude and a tough mindset, you got to get rolled no matter what happened back in February. So that's what we need to do. Just go there with the right mindset, right attitude, and hopefully that'll get us across the line. And
obviously, would it be fair to say that you've watched their game against Wigan and probably watched them the week before against St Helens? How much do you disregard those performances from them, or lack of them, if you may say?
Yeah, whenever you play a side, you've got to assume that they're going to be at their best. So that's what we've done. We've probably focused a lot on the first game that we played against them, and where we were able to nullify all their strengths. Most sides you tend to think at the first game of the year is when they're going to be hungry and trying to show off what they've been training for the last 3 months for. So we've sort of looked at that game a bit. For whatever reason, they just haven't quite hit the mark the last couple of weeks. But I think you'll find there'll be a lot of players who will play this week that didn't play last week, and this will be their chance to, I suppose, start afresh, on the back of a new coach.
Zach pointed it out. Obviously, people are going to say a lot about the team missing John Asiata this week, but Zach pointed out, having been at Lee for the last 2 years, there were games that they played without John Asiata. How much does it help that you've got a good few of that team here now to deal with his absence?
Yeah, that helps. Look, we've got a spot, a 1, 6 and 7 that are still sort of probably had their best game last week together, so they're going to have to take a little bit more responsibility. But not only that, everyone around them, they're going to have to also own what they do with the ball. As I said earlier in the interview, we have trained without Johnny, so the pressure of a game hasn't quite been there because he's played most minutes, and the more he's played, probably the more dominant he has become. But look, it's going to be a bit of a new experience for us, and we won't know until we come off the field. But I'm confident that we've done enough on the field throughout the pre-season. And the experience and the players that are going to be there, that it's a challenge, but I'm sure we'll be ready for it.
And obviously the temperature over there is going to be 30 odd degrees. In February it would have been a lot cooler. How much of a part will that play in this game?
It won't bother me. I'll be looking forward to it. But yeah, as far as playing in 30-degree heat, it's a different kettle of fish. So. They'll be a little bit more accustomed to it, I suppose, over there, having trained in it and played in it. But look, there's enough competitors within our team. They're quite looking forward to it too, to be honest with you. Yeah, if you had a choice to play in that or -5, I think they'd take the 30 degrees.
And you said earlier this year, you said that if there was more than one Magic weekend, there wouldn't be a problem with that. Does it feel like now that you're approaching the halfway point of the season, moving forward, would a Magic weekend or roundabout now be a good time to do another event like that?
Oh, probably a little. It only seems like the other day we had the last one, but yeah, I don't mind the Magic rounds concept in that, if you take it somewhere to spread the game and get some more eyes on the game, I think we've got a fantastic game, and the more people we can expose it to, the better. I think you've asked the question, and it certainly wouldn't bother me if there was another one in another 5 or 6 weeks' time. And it's a great event. It's great for the fans. It's good for the TV audience. Anything we can do to promote the game, I think it's our duty to help.